And we're live, apparently. We've got one viewer. Or so it seems. It's so weird with these streams to just like get them up and there's potentially nobody there waiting for you. I'm sure there's a better way to do it. I just started. Can you scroll that over just a little bit so I can see the concurrent number? Just move the chat window over just a little bit. And my dad is back as technical support. Mo and Joe, episode 4. You got 0 concurrent, is that what it is, or is that 8? It's the left number on top. Yeah. Nice. Love talking to nobody. Hey, Callie, what'd you get out here? What's up, Callie? Did my audio change a lot when it fell out of my shirt? It just fell down. Cool. Give it a few more minutes before you pan in. Because people are probably just now tuning in. I'm going to grab the clip for this thing. Trying to be too fancy. There now, it won't fall off. Get a few more minutes for people to join in, or I will live stream to nobody too. Kelly. Come here. No? Okay. Still nobody watching. Are we public?
It says live.
Yeah. I wonder if we're public though. Public. That's in style.
Clearly, people aren't global distancing.
Yeah.
They're out.
Yeah. Must be having some Memorial Day festivities. Well, I'll get started anyway, talking to no one.
Ready?
Yep. Happy Memorial Day Sunday, everybody. Today we are going to do another episode of Mo and Joe. Sunday morning, 10 a.m. I like to get together and just kind of give you guys a shop update, let you know what I'm working on, let you know what I've got planned, and then we do a quick little project. Today we're going to be finishing this Spalted maple live edge river table, all the keywords or whatever. It's it's a fun project. It wasn't fun at first because I had some failures in the epoxy. It did a thing called overtherming. So epoxy and hardener and the resin are it's an exothermic reaction. So as they cure, they can heat up, and sometimes that heat from the cure can actually cause it to fail, the reaction to fail. Too much heat and it'll actually stay like a gel. So you end up getting like a jelly consistency, which makes it impossible to sand and impossible to get back together. So this has sat in my shed for actually almost 2 years. A little update on last week's project. So I said I was going to finish it up off stream. So with the marigold bench for my daughter, made out of sweet gum. I did add the bevels, just a little subtle taper here in the legs, just to kind of take a little bit of the weight off. And then I added just a smooth curve to both sides and the ends, so that it had kind of Japanese meets sort of craftsman style. I also, you can see how the green turned out on top after it was all sanded. This is all sanded to 220, and I finished it in what's been my favorite finish lately, this Danish teak sealer from Total Boat. It's generally used for boats on teak to preserve like the color of teak, but it's really weather resistant and really hard, but it still has a nice like soft looking finish. So I really like the way that turned out, and I'm adding sawdust all over it, so I'll have to wipe it down before I put it back in the house. But she loves it, and it puts her right at the right level for her age. She's a 4-year-old, so hope she don't grow out of it. I also, I did end up screwing in the top. I oversized the holes in the frame of the stool, and then I drilled into the top. So if it does have a little bit of seasonal expansion and contraction on the top, it shouldn't crack, plus it's a thick enough slab that it should kind of wrangle itself all into square. But yeah, that's the project from last week. Moving into the stuff we're working on for this week with this slab. So this is a spalted hard maple slab, which means that it's very, very hard, and it's also, I'm not sure, Dad, if you can look in at the way that this slab looks. The grain on it is going absolutely every direction all at once. Then you also have these spalting occlusions, which are actually like little tracks of bug droppings or mildew or things like that have tracked throughout the wood. The wood will then heal around, the tree will then heal around that and create these little occlusions. But this slab has so much craziness going on. There's discoloration from probably some sort of fungus. There's some rot probably from where the tree was left out for longer before it was actually milled. It's crazy knotty. This is just one of my favorite slabs. You can check my Instagram and see actually what the finished product of the other side looked like. Equally beautiful to this side, but just a crazy looking slab. So what I did is I poured in, I took 2 slabs. You can see that I actually ripped them each in half and then put them back together so they could be milled a little bit easier. I only at the time had like a 15-inch planer. So I ripped them in half and joined them back together. Then I poured in the epoxy river, which is was a popular table thing at the time, about 2 years ago. It's still kind of popular, but I'm going to use this actually as a barn door using some Can Crowder barn door hardware that I also have. So I'm going to use this to hide an ugly door in my backdrop, and also just to showcase just this beautiful slab that I've got. It's kind of like like when you go and like when people that shop for antiques like find that really cool antique that they're really excited about. Getting a slab like this is where like I get really excited. So I'm trying to, I don't think anyone would necessarily want furniture made out of it, but I'm trying to keep it intact and in a way where it'll be displayed and be able to see how cool it is. So what I'm going to do, I already took this through 80. I actually had to grind off all of that uncured epoxy. Then I took it through 80, 150, and 220 grit already. So I'm going to take it through to 400 grit here. This is Mirka's Deros system. It's a 6-inch sander or a 5-inch sander that actually has a remote connection to a vacuum. So whenever you turn it on, it'll automatically turn on the suction. The vacuum's got a HEPA filter, and then with the Deros system, when you use it, it's pretty cool. It's got this extra piece here. It's got a special hose. It's got a special hose where the cord and the hose are actually like together into one piece. And then you can attach them into the sander, and that way it's always connected to your dust collection very easily. And then it's got a power trigger on the vacuum itself so that it can easily work together. They also make the Abranet sandpaper. This is their 400 grit, which is like a mesh sandpaper, which a lot of people are doing now. but it makes for really easy installation and really easy dust collection because you don't have to line up any circles. So I'm going to take this through to 400 grit real quick, and then we'll put on some finish and make this thing pop. When I'm sanding, I like to go in some sort of predictable pattern. That way I'm sure I don't miss anything. I know people like to scribble on their wood. That's another way you can do it. But I just like to go in a predictable pattern, up and across this way, and then probably back across the other side. I'm also, as I go, I'm making sure that I'm not leaving any swirl marks. So one thing I've learned in finish sanding is to use a little bit lower speed than you normally would. And I did something. No. As I go through this, I'm also looking for like any imperfections in my previous sandings, see if there's any sort of marks that I can buff out potentially. But in a slab like this, where it's going every which way all the time, it's hard to necessarily see any of that, especially in the finished product, but I'm trying to be cognizant of it as I go. This 400 grit finish, you actually only need to go to like 220 for the finish I'm using. The main reason I'm going to 400 grit is because there's that epoxy inlay. You want that epoxy to be nice and buff smooth. So I am focusing on the epoxy a little more than the rest of it. Yeah, I mean, so the spalting probably had something to do with the end of the tree, I would suspect. It probably rotted out some layers and allowed like probably some of the fungus that causes darkening to come into it. It's really interesting. I'm not an arborist, and I don't have like all the training on what all of the different weathering patterns mean for all these different trees, but you can a lot of times what makes a slab like this so interesting is the way that it lived. So a tree like this probably wasn't very happy when it was alive, but I mean, this is probably a pretty old tree. I would imagine it's probably 40 to 50 years old, and maple grows pretty fast. It could have been even younger than that, but it got it had a hard life. It was around a lot of bugs. It had a lot of knots, so it probably grew a lot of weird branches. Wasn't grown in like a forest where it was kind of naturally mitigated by the other trees around it. And then the bugs must have gotten this thing hardcore. I don't know what bug necessarily goes after maple that causes this kind of spalting, but probably some kind of beetle. I know like there's like the ash borer beetle that's getting into ash right now in the U.S. That's a big problem. I don't know what the equivalent is for maple. So not much sanding to go on here, just kind of buffing it out, making sure I don't have any swirl marks, making sure I don't have any pigtails. So sometimes when you get a piece of sawdust trapped in your sander. You'll cause little like pigtails in the finish. You don't want that, but this is just getting ready for the first coat. So usually go through, put the first coat on, let that dry, and then from there I'll go through and buff it out with like a Scotch-Brite pad or whatever to smooth it out, build up a little bit of the finish so it'll fill in any of those like little small defects or like anything you mess up in the sanding. I think that's pretty good. Now I'm gonna go through and leave the edge here. Knock down the bottom edge a bit. All right. So I think that's pretty good at the 400 grit stage. I'm gonna blow this off real quick with some compressed air. I'm gonna wipe it.
Woodworkers say that 90% of your finishing results come from the preparations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. The more meticulous you are in each stage of finishing, the better your finish is going to turn out. Both from like sanding, application, filling, getting everything ready, making sure that you're doing things in a timely fashion, depending on your finish type, going that little one step beyond. So like this surface only really needs to be prepped to 220 grit for the poly Danish oil type finish that I'm using on it. But since I'm getting the epoxy to 400 to get a nice smooth finish on the epoxy, it might as well go to 400 on the rest of the wood, just so there's not that abrupt change or any sort of differences in the grits that you're using. But yeah, lots of preparation. Putting that first coat of finish on, that's where you can really see where all your work comes out. So this isn't one of like your super eco-friendly finishes. It's got some naphtha in it, some other things. So I like to put on gloves when I apply this. I apologize for my compressor going in the background. I hope it's not too loud. Can you hear me okay or no? Okay, I'll wait a minute, I'll repeat what I said. I really need to get a bigger compressor. Dylan, if you're watching, my brother sells hydraulic and pneumatic equipment, so hopefully you can hook me up. Waiting too long. So this finish, this Danish teak sealer, it's designed for the nautical industry, as most of Total Boat's products are. It's usually used for keeping like the teak or the on like a boat or a paddle boat or a speedboat or whatever, or the top side. It's designed to keep that stuff not getting discolored, so it's got some UV protection in it, it's got rot resistance, it's got discoloration resistance, it's got a little bit of tint. I really like it because it dries super fast, like 20-30 minutes, and it gives you a really smooth finish without crazy attention to detail in the surface prep. It's got a really pleasant sheen to it. It's not overly glossy, it's not overly matte. I used to use polyurethane, thinned polyurethane mixed with thin polyurethane mixed with a little bit of boiled linseed oil to get a similar effect, but I like this a lot better because it's got some of those inhibitors in it, which I think are always pleasant to have. Wood discolors over time, so it's always good to do that. Generally, when I'm applying to something like this, where I'm really interested in the way the finish applies because the grain's going different directions, I'll use a folded up paper towel. White towels are probably better than blue towels. Blue towels are what I have on hand. Sometimes the blue tint or the pieces of the blue towel will rub off in your finish, but fortunately I tried this on the other side and it was just fine. You know, zoom out on the spot dye. This is pretty cool. Zoom in right here. I'll show you, this is like the most satisfying part of any of these projects is when you get this first rub on of the finish, because it makes all that grain just pop. And so with that little bit of warmth that's in the tint in this finish, it brings out in this maple just everything. This would be a great finish for really any kind of wood that needs that little bit of warmth. So some species of walnut, almost anything that's like a lighter color. It gives it kind of that nice, warm, without being like artificial looking color. I do like it. And with this blue-green that I used, getting that orange pop, that warm pop against the blue, really makes it stand out. Have any of you guys tried using any of the Total Boat finishing products yet on any of your projects? I don't know how many people are actually watching live right now, but...
On, she said good morning.
Yay, Mom's
Mark,
watching.
Mark Bongers from the Netherlands is on.
Hey, what's up, Netherlands? How you doing? Everybody having a good week? I know the lockdown's starting to open up in some places. Everybody staying safe? But yeah, I like to slowly kind of apply it, make sure I'm working in all directions so that I don't have any spots of the grain that are popping through as I'm applying the finish. So I usually just work from the middle and work my way out. I don't know why. Sometimes that's just usually what I end up doing, especially on a panel like this.
So does this type of wood, when the bugs are in it, does it change the characteristics, like make it harder?
No, the spalting doesn't necessarily make it harder. If anything, it makes it softer. The spalting. Sorry, my dad asked if when you have the spalting in wood, if it makes it harder, or changes the characteristics of the wood at all. If anything, the spalting can make it softer because a lot of times the funguses and the bacteria that'll break down wood will penetrate it faster. And especially from the lumber dealer that I go to, where they handle either trees that have died on properties or trees that just need to be removed for housing developments. A lot of times, by the time they get to the tree, it's dead, and with the spalting, sometimes a dead tree, it'll start to decay faster than a tree that doesn't have spalting, just because those bug lines are easy lines to penetrate the tree's defenses.
Would you recommend this finish or this finish on maple plywood?
Maple plywood, yeah, it would look really good on nice maple plywood. If you have like cheap box store maple plywood, it might turn out looking a little bit yellow because if it's like radially cut. But if you have nice finished grade maple plywood, it would actually look really good. This is actually maple here, so it would kind of give you a similar color to this. Maple ranges in colors though, but your typical hard maple, I think it's usually hard maple is what they make the veneers out of. So yeah, it would actually look really good on maple plywood. I don't remember if I used it on plywood. I've used this on a couple projects. I've only been using it for about a year. I don't think I've put it on any plywood projects yet. But what I used to use on maple plywood projects was a boiled linseed oil and polyurethane mixture, which is what this kind of replicates. I mean, that's what Danish oil is essentially, is polyurethane and boiled linseed oil. But like I said, what I like about this is that it also has those rot inhibitors and things like that. So it's not just that film buildup that you get. So you can apply it a little bit thinner, and it feels more like an oil finish than it does like a polyurethane finish when it's all done. I really love the way the grain is popping out on this. Last night when I did the other side, I was getting so excited about just seeing the way that everything was coming through. This side has a lot more discoloration than the other side does. I still haven't decided which side is going to be like the front side of my door when I actually put it up on the wall. Because I don't know, I like the discoloration. I think it tells more of a story. It's more interesting, but it is like kind of weirdly inconsistent in some areas where like a branch grew out and maybe brought the fungus with it or whatever that just caused that discoloration to go that way. It was really hard to sand. It's hard to tell what was discoloration from the epoxy and what was discoloration from the tree. So it's really interesting to get into.
From Oceanside, California.
What's up? How is it in California? Bet you guys have much nicer weather than we did. I was trying to finish up my video. I was hoping to get it published on my video for the raised cedar planters that I built. But I had to get a final shot of actually putting the stuff in the ground. It's rained here in St. Louis for like 14 days straight. Yesterday was the first day we had a clear day, and we got out with the family and went to the park and did some grilling in the park and played in the creek. It was a good time. My dad was there. He enjoyed it too. It was the first time we'd really gotten all the cousins together since the quarantine.
And Dad was able to take a break and get a haircut.
Yeah. Stepdad finally got out into the world and got a haircut from a real person instead of me with shears.
Table saw.
Yeah, there you go. I think a jigsaw would probably be the best thing to cut your hair with. So this stuff takes like 20 to 30 minutes to dry, so I probably won't go through and fully finish it today on the stream. But I just wanted to kind of share with you, just real quick, my finishing process. So I'm almost done applying that like kind of like soak coat on here. I don't usually go super thick just because I don't like wasting finish. I mean, I've been using the same can for probably 6 months now. Generally, I would say if you're looking for the ultimate in finishes, I would pour it into a separate container so you don't contaminate the finish as you apply it. I've never had any issues with contamination. And when I spray my finishes, I'll put them through the filter first. So if there is any contamination, hopefully it gets filtered out. But just something to think about if you don't want to go through those other steps. But I wipe all my finishes probably 60% of the time. Unless it's like a really complex piece, I usually will just wipe on. All right, so almost done my soap coat. I'm just kind of going through and finding any place that look dry.
I just wanted to confirm that you're using Total Boat brand.
Yeah, Total Boat Danish Teak Sealer. If you haven't used it, it's really nice. You can get it on their website. It's, I think I said it earlier, it's made for like the teak and mahogany top sides of boats. It's designed to protect them against the elements, protect them from rot, protect them from discoloration. But it also has, because it's designed to give that top side teak finish for teak and mahogany on boats, it's got just a little bit of tint to it that makes it work like what used to be my favorite finish, which was just a nice like custom-made Danish oil with polyurethane and boiled linseed oil. Plus, it dries a lot faster. So there's my first coat there. So I've applied my wet coat. I'll usually let it sit for a couple minutes. Not even a couple minutes, like 30, 40 seconds. And I'll hit it same way, real quick with a dry towel.
How many coats are you planning on using for this project?
For this one, I will probably do 2 coats of the Danish teak sealer, and then because it's going to be out in my shop, I'll probably give it 1 coat of just straight like water-based poly over top. So with film-based finishes like this, you can build them up a little bit. I think the Danish teak sealer would probably be sufficient, but I want to do the poly so it's got a little slipperier surface in case there's any like sawdust buildup, so I can just quickly blow it off. If this were going in a house, I might just do like 3 coats of the Danish teak sealer. The teak sealer Holds up really well, but the other nice thing is it's a very thin film, so it's very easy to reapply. So as you kind of wear it down with wear and tear in the house, you can always just add more over top. I've got a couple pieces that like that piece that I gave for Marigold. That's got 3 coats of Danish teak sealer on it, and I don't anticipate it having any major, but we'll see. I haven't done any kids projects in it yet.
Georgia Ann Burdette says they live on the eastern coast of Connecticut and just love that total boat stuff.
It's a great company too. I've been working with them for a while, ever since they tried to like start reaching outside of the boaters market. They're really cool people. They've also been pretty innovative in kind of finding new products to support different markets. They've always been like one of the leaders in epoxy for like covering canoes and coating boats and total boat. I mean, they've been really all the nautical products kind of leading the way on that. But ever since they started working with more of us lay woodworkers, they've really innovated and made a couple new products I've been pretty excited to try. Like they've got a new deep pour epoxy. I didn't use Total Boat, by the way, when I originally poured this table. I did use some Total Boat epoxy to patch this slab. I used their 2-in-1 slow set to patch some of the areas that had that after I sanded off the finally cured epoxy that I patched with. But the original pour, I won't disclose the name of who the original epoxy maker was. It probably was a bad batch, might have partially been my fault, could have been the weather. A lot of factors come into any of that stuff, but I'm sure it was just some bad luck. But that bad luck made this thing sit in my shed for 2 years to finally cure. I tried to repair it as much as I could initially, but it needed time, or it needed to just be totally stripped down and redone, which wasn't really feasible without ruining somebody's large format belt sander. So yeah, so there's the slab all done. That's it. Beautiful. So I'm going to do probably one more coat of the teak sealer. What I'll do between coats, you hang out there, I'll be right back. Mirka makes these so what you do between coats is you want to hit them with some Scotch-Brite pads, and Mirka makes these Scotch-Brite discs. They're called the Merlon. So I don't know if they're made by 3M, but they're that similar Scotch-Brite material to scuff up your finish. Because usually what you want to do to bond the next coat and also to clear any sort of imperfections, bubbles, whatever in that first coat is to go through and scuff that up. So they've got multiple different grits here. This is the ultra fine, but they've got, fine, coarse, whatever, so you can go through and get it. I'll probably use the ultra fine for this, so I'll leave that out. And then put on a second coat, and then I'll probably scuff it again, and then put on, I might do a third coat for the inside facing face of the door, and then I'll do maybe 2 coats of poly on top of that, just so it's a really, really durable sealed finish. Yeah, so that's what's next on that plate. From there, I wanted to kind of talk to you about the actual sander a little bit. No, I didn't. I talked to you about that already. Sorry, my brain's a little flustered. It's Sunday. Get over it. I need more coffee. From there, I want to talk about the creators of the week. So let me grab my laptop. I'm going to unplug you, Deb. Whoa. Why are we getting echo? Feedback? Oh, need to mute these speakers. There we go. All right, can you guys see me okay? All right, so now we're gonna go into the Creators of the Week segment. hopefully this works. Last week I did this, and I had lots of nice things to say about all of you, but I wasn't able to because my audio wasn't working. All right, so the first creator of the week, a good buddy of mine, designs by Donnie. Donnie's a great dude. He makes some...
Might want to double check if everybody's hearing you.
Yeah, can everybody hear me okay? I'm still seeing audio. Yeah, I'm still seeing audio. We're good. So Donnie is a fantastic maker out of Florida. He works in like the Destin area, makes some really, really nice furniture for some really high-end, nice furniture for for clients out there. Just beautiful stuff. Some of my favorite things that he does are these S-curve supports that he does. These are pretty unique pieces to his designs. He makes like that bulky, rustic farmhouse-looking furniture in a really unique way. Really like that. He's been working on a bunk bed. He did some bunk beds that I was really inspired by. This is actually the first time I talked to him as I was asking about, let me go back in his timeline. I was asking about how he did his bunk beds because he made a set of beautiful, beautiful bunk beds. If I can get back to him without wasting too much time. Somewhere back here. Check it out. He's got really cool bunk beds. There they are. Really cool bunk beds. Awesome tables that he's made. Lots of good stuff with the bandsaw. Lots of really cool finishes that he works on, like multi-stage, like paint and whitewash combined finishes. So check out Designs by Donnie. I've got the link below in the description. Next is Faisal Malik and Faisal Malik Designs. I've got them linked below. But just some crazy over-the-top detail like this thing. So he's got square inlays to cover probably some occlusions or some... oh, why'd that jump? He's got square inlays to cover some details in the wood that he didn't like when he was building it up, or maybe just for a design piece. And then he bow tied in those square support pieces. So it's probably, yeah, so it's just some rough lumber that he maybe had some checks and some discoloration in that he didn't like in the finished product, so he replaced those. He's also done some work like with stitching together. I think these are ebony stitches. You can see even the details within the ebony stitch. Just phenomenal guy. Next level design, next level in woodworking, and just an eye for detail that I will never have. But really cool stuff. The other one that I would like to, that I think is a great follow for this time of reality, is Pete Nelson from Treehouse Masters. He's been doing tree houses for a long time, but he recently, I think, has a show on like Discovery or something like that. But just all of those Instagram wonders they see about tree houses and like escape places. Tim Nelson's in some way associated with all of those. So just if you want some inspiration for getting outside and maybe doing some work on a building in your yard or doing something cool, outside instead of just in your shop, to get out of this whole lockdown situation, definitely check him out for some inspiration. I fully plan on deeply diving into his catalog before I build the playground slash hi baby. The playground slash treehouse that I plan on building for my daughters. So that is the creators of the week section. Check all them out in the check all them out check all them out in the check all them out in the description below, and let me know what you think in the comments if there's anybody you want to see more of. Thanks, Glenn. Whoa, why am I sharing that screen? Okay, thanks, Glenn. Yeah, I appreciate it. The 3M sanding product again. Okay, it's Scotch-Brite pads. Product is Scotch-Brite pads. So like the green Scotch-Brites that you use for like cleaning your dishes or whatever, you can also use those for scuffing up a finish. My daughter's joined us out here. It's really cute. She's hanging out with Grandpa. Scotch-Brite pads are the product that you can use to scuff up a finish before you put on that final coat. just to bring down any sort of inconsistencies or any sort of imperfections in your initial coat. So probably going to be a short session. My dad's got to get to church, so I'm losing my cameraman here shortly. So I'm going to open it up for some Q&A. If anybody's on the stream has some questions, I'll open it up now for any questions from the stream. I'm going to go back through the stream and see if I see any questions from before. I don't see any people on right now, but there's been a lot of comments, so I think something's wrong with the way it's reporting concurrence, so I have no idea what's going on. But if you have any questions, now's the time to ask. I'll keep it open for like 5 minutes and see if anybody's got any questions. And if not, I'll get back to a beautiful Memorial Day that we randomly got. It's supposed to be raining.
Memorial pre-day.
It's supposed to be raining all day though. It's a bonus day. Do I watch Rob Cosman? Yes, I watch Rob Cosman. He is super talented at tool making. He's a enterprise in the whole like woodworking and like content creation space. I think like IBC chisels and irons are one of the big things that he supports, and they're very good quality. Haven't owned one, but I've handled them in a couple guys' shops, and they're really good. I've watched a lot of his videos like early on like his simple like dovetail techniques. He's got a really simple to follow. Well, no, it's not simple to follow. He's got a really complex but consistent result dovetail technique that he does. From Fred, how do I take my coffee black? That's the only way to take coffee, is just properly brewed black cup of coffee. If you can't take it black, you're either not buying the right beans or you're not brewing it right. Every time I get a new bag of beans, I'll play with like different. I'll play with different grind finenesses until I get the right. So typically, the finer the grind of your bean, the more bitter is going to come out in the flavor. The less fine of a grind that you're going to have, the less bitter. I usually go with a medium roast. I'll grind it. It's a 4 on my thing, so it's like kind of medium fine to fine as far as the grinds. And then I usually go like 3/4 of a cup. No, I do 1 1/4 cup to 1.5 cups of water per scoop, per tablespoon of grinds. Grind that in a coffee maker, and you should be able to take it black. It's funny though, I actually didn't even start drinking coffee till I was like 24. My wife drank coffee since she was like 17. But I finally, at my brother's bachelor party, I was just so well served, we'll say, that I wanted some coffee to kind of level back out before I went home. And went to a little diner and had my first cup of coffee. And yeah, I doctored up like crazy when I first started it, but I've slowly kind of went towards a black cup of coffee. The other nice thing about a black cup of coffee is it's like 5 calories as opposed to, 100 when you put all the cream and sugar and whatever in there. Any more questions? I feel it's appropriate to talk about coffee so much in Mo and Joe, but if there's any more questions. My mom says, wow. I don't know how to answer that, but I'm not sure if she's talking about how I take my coffee or how my slab turned out. I'm glad at least my mom watches my stream. That's cool. She watched me sand for 10 minutes. And thank you for everyone who stayed tuned and watched me sand for 10 minutes. Oh, do I watch Paul Sellers? Yes. Paul Sellers, one of his best videos, one of my favorites, is the his 2x4 workbench that he made all with hand tools. Before I had my YouTube channel, I built one like that. I built a Rubo style workbench out of 2x4s. It is a ton of work, but it's a great workout to plane up all those 2x4s, join them all together and make a workbench. So that workbench in the background of the whole beginning of my channel was all the Paul Sellers inspired workbench. Thanks, Fred. Yeah, 2 years later, and this thing finally looks like something I can hang on my wall. When you see the final video and you see the epoxy fail, and then see all the sanding I've done over the last week to get this thing back into a manageable state, I'm glad it's back to something usable. I was terrified it was going to be just lost, but thankfully I was inspired to take it to where it's at now because I really like the way it turned out. Any other questions? Got one more question. I'll take one more question. Anybody? Very cool. Okay. So next week on the stream, I'm thinking about trying to focus a little more on the mow part of Mo and Joe. We'll see if it works out. I'm going to talk to a buddy of mine who's actually he went to school for landscape design or horticulture or whatever it is. We'll bring him in, maybe if he's available, to talk a little bit about how to bring your yard up to snuff, and then also maybe talk a little bit about my mower and maybe even get some of his insights on it, because he runs a landscaping company. So he can tell us a little bit about what he knows about the different technologies this thing has. I'm a credit to Paul and Rob. Glenn, you're too nice, but I appreciate it. Thank you. A director's cut documenting the entire 2 years. I actually have a lot of footage from the stuff 2 years ago. I didn't just point a camera at it sitting in my shop, in my shed there, Fred, but maybe that might be fun. Cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end that there for today. Thank you all for joining, and have a great Memorial Day tomorrow. Thanks for all of the service members out there and all the veterans that have been to war and that have fought for our country. Always thinking about you, not just on Memorial Day. So thanks for your service. From there, I guess the only thing to say is tune in next week, 10 a.m. on Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, whatever works for you. Keep your tools sharp and keep your mind sharper. I'll talk to you then. Stay safe.